a women's bodybuilding breakdown. My name is Abby Kay. I am one of your hosts, and today I have a new host. Her name is IFBB Pro Medical Muscle.
You probably watch my face be like, huh? Oh yeah. Yeah, I get it. Thank you. Yes, I am now pro. It doesn't feel real.
So I want to just talk about Universe, where Anna clearly, given my introduction, just won her IFBB Pro card in figure. What was Universe like this year?
Universe was a lot of fun. Charleston is a really cool city, and I went this year with my boyfriend, obviously, and then we went with our friend Andrew, who I've done 2 shows with him before, and he and Dennis and I have always kind of stayed together. And so third time around, and Andrew has a girlfriend that he brought this time, and so the 4 of us stayed in an Airbnb in Charleston. It was really fun. Andrew won his pro card in physique, in men's physique, and I won in figure, and we had a really good weekend celebrating that.
Sounds like a good weekend. 2 IFBB
Yeah.
Pro cards doesn't
Yeah,
get.
not bad, not bad. Third time's the charm.
Now, judging from the photos, it looks like Universe was either, in a different location or they just changed the background or a combination of both because this year's
Everything.
lighting, everything looked so much better from the live
So
stream.
much better. I was so relieved. I even asked someone backstage about it. They told me that the whole lighting setup was completely different engineers with that. They did get feedback from last year that it was bad lighting, and so they fixed it, and it was insane lighting. Everyone looked really good.
Was this the first, or was this a new location as well, or no, it was
Nope.
the same location?
Same
That's awesome.
hotel, same stage. Yep,
So
just did
great.
they hired different lighting people.
And not only that, but I bet they also got feedback about the red background.
Probably, yeah. Everyone looked a little bit red. Yeah,
Terrible. So terrible. Combine that with bad lighting, just terrible.
I know, I know.
But this year
This
was
year
great.
they nailed it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the expediting. What was the expediting like? Did you feel like you had ample
Perfect.
time and
Oh yeah, ample time, and one of the only shows that I can say, like, when they tell you you have to stop pumping up, and like you put your bands and your weights down, and you're like, okay, now I'm gonna wait here for another 45 minutes, and I'm gonna go flat. They didn't. It was not that way. Everything was perfectly organized. Even though they changed the time of prejudging to 3 p.m., they were not rushing us. Everything was perfectly organized. We put our bands down, and 5 minutes later, we were walking on stage. So it was really, really well run. They absolutely killed it.
one thing that was interesting was they moved the prejudging time till 3 p.m. And I thought it was kind of funny because there was no way that prejudging would start at 3 and finals was going to start at 6. Did you ever
Right.
find out why they changed the prejudging time?
I don't know. I know there was another event in the hotel that same weekend, so I think they were maybe trying to keep those separated. I have no idea, but honestly, I mean, I knew finals wasn't going to start at 6. I think it started at 7,
Yeah,
which, like,
I think a little bit later, but
hugely surprising. And I was not, I finished up probably around 9. It wasn't that late. It wasn't that bad.
yeah. So what did you think of the overall competition?
It seemed to be a good competition. I think there were probably about the same number of people there were at Universe last year. I actually haven't been on NPC News Online and seen how many people were in each class, but I would say in figure there were probably like 5 to 12 people in each class. I think the smallest was 5, and that would have been mine.
Mhm. Well, we're going to show some pictures of you. I just wanted to talk about Universe in general first. Obviously, there were a lot of master's classes. Anyone who doesn't know about Universe, we'll just give you a little rundown here. There are a bunch of master's classes. It's one of the cool and not cool things about Universe. I think it like is a double-edged sword, but there's a 35 plus class, is it 45 plus or 40 plus, 50
I think
plus,
it's 35, 40, 50,
and
60.
60.
I
Yeah.
think
And the winners of those classes each get a pro card. And then there's also the overall. And then once you get into the open classes, and open classes are when you don't have any age restriction. Those classes, they give 2 pro cards, the top 2 in each division, and then there's also an overall winner.
Hmm.
So a lot of times what you see, and we definitely saw this year, was you'll have someone who competes in the 60 plus class will also compete in the 50 plus class and the 30 plus class and or 35 plus class and the open. So you'll have one competitor maybe doing 3 or 4 separate classes, which is like kind of fun and also can be kind of annoying.
It's kind of fun, and then it just makes me think about that $275 per class show entry fee, and I'm like, oh my god.
So that's probably one reason why the promoters and the NPC like it, because they
I'm sure
multiple multiple entry fees.
Yeah.
There were a few people that were really great. There was one woman from your team actually that I thought was really impressive. I think she did
cleaned house. Yeah.
She did what, 50 plus, 40 plus, and no, 40, 35, and open.
Yep. And I think she won them all.
Yeah, she did win them all. Yeah, she won. I think she even won an overall in one of the higher age classes. So that's really exciting, and she looked fantastic.
Yeah, she really did.
What did you think about, obviously we have all the masters classes and all the winners getting their pro cards, but what did you think about top 2 in every class in the open getting pro cards this year?
I don't know. It's one thing when you're on the side of chasing your pro card and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this show, and it's usually pretty big, and it's nice that the top 2 win their pro cards. And then on the other side of it, I had a small class, and I didn't want like 2 out of the 5 people in my class getting pro cards, because that like feels like maybe it cheapens the value of the pro card. But I don't know. I don't want to think about any of that.
I think we lost Anna for a minute here. Might pause and wait for her to come back. All right, so Anna has come back. Why don't we pick up where we left off? You said you don't want to think about something.
I don't want to say, I don't really, like, I'm trying not to have an opinion about this because I won. I don't want to be disappointed about my own win because my class was small or whatever. I think I brought a pro physique to the stage, and I'm proud of that. And I think I deserve to win my pro card. And most of the other athletes that I saw winning their pro cards looked like pros on stage as well. So I think in any show where you're going to give 2 pro cards to the top 2 people in the class, you run the risk of a second place winner not really being ready to be a pro yet. But I think for the most part, what I saw was pretty much deserving winners getting their pro cards. So we've used this term a lot, but it's a double-edged sword.
It really is. There's a lot of that in bodybuilding. Well,
and there were classes, with 12 plus figure girls in them, and the top 2 in that definitely, in my opinion, deserve to win their pro cards. So I don't know how you would make it any different.
I think the whole situation with COVID has really changed a lot of this and how many competitors are at our show. And, maybe the 2 pro cards has always been a really good thing, but maybe just like there's a brief period of time here where it doesn't quite make sense. But I'm really optimistic that the numbers are going to pick right back up again, and we're going to move beyond this, and COVID's just going to be a memory. So
do you think there weren't a lot of people at Universe? Because I felt like it was a pretty well attended show. They said it was, I think, what they say, over 2, I can't remember what they said. They said something in the athlete meeting, and I clearly wasn't paying attention.
I don't remember how many have come in previous years, so it's hard to say. I think watching the live stream, I wish I had been there in person. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately since we started making this podcast. I've been thinking, wow, I want to attend, and I already wanted to, but now that we're reviewing people on a podcast, I really want to attend in person more, because I think you see people in a very different light when you're in person than you do on a live stream. Even if the live stream is super high quality, you don't see the conditioning. I think you actually pointed that out when I was talking about a particular competitor. You said, this person does not look the same in person. Like, those photos make them look really different. And that was actually in a sort of in a backwards way, in a negative way, because I was saying, wow, so-and-so looks, et cetera, in a good way. And you were like, actually in person, like, you can't see the skin, you can't see this. And some not as great qualities. And so I really want to go in person to all of these shows next year if I can.
Yeah.
Because I think that that really matters as far as judging goes. The photos are great. I love reviewing the photos, but I think you do need to be there in person. So,
Yeah.
you know, and Nate and I were talking about that as we watched the live stream. We were saying maybe what we're seeing isn't a great representation. So because there were some standout people, but then there were also, you know, a large number that weren't super standout.
Yeah.
Sometimes we were actually talking about how the 35 plus class at Universe can often be one of the more competitive ones. I because they have I would say like older looking muscle, less subcutaneous fat than the younger competitors, because, you know, as you get older, you lose a lot of that subcutaneous fat. So you look harder and all that stuff. It's one of the benefits of aging.
Yeah.
So one of the benefits. So, you know, we were talking about how that class can often be super, super competitive, but
It usually is. Yeah.
yeah, but it is tough because I think we should have probably skipped watching some of the older classes, because I think by the time we had gotten to the 35 plus class, we had already seen people multiple times.
Yes.
So I think that like that's the double-edged sword part that we were talking about earlier. We had already seen people a bunch of times by the time we got to the open as well. We'd already seen everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I thought overall Universe is usually really well attended. It was so far way better to me than the junior shows both were. Already way better attended, a lot more competition, because those shows were pretty small, I would say.
You know, it's weird. I have been to so many national shows, and I've always been in the same class. I've always been class C at national shows every single time. And sometimes it's the biggest class and sometimes it's the smallest class and everything in between. So I think when you take into account how much variation is naturally there at national shows, I feel like you can't even judge this year and last year and say, even was that all COVID? I have no idea. Like, honestly, some of these shows in the fall towards the end of the summer might be huge, and they might not be. It might just be like a little lag time of people who are trying to get their pro cards. I don't know.
I am excited. I do think that nationals, like actual nationals, to use the term accurately, is the most competitive show of the year. I think it's partially because it's so prestigious. I also think it's because it's the last show, really, except for last year with COVID, with USA's getting pushed back. But it's the last show of the year. It also has the most prestigious history. So I think that show really gets, not to use this word, but it gets stacked.
Stacked. And then last year, because it was one of the last ones, people were already done shooting their shot. Like, by the time they got to USA's, I remember we talk about this? I was going through the classes, being like, there were like one or two girls in each class at USA's. People were like done. They were exhausted last year. Nobody went to those later shows. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this year.
I usually think nationals is super full of very.
It usually is, but it was one of the smaller ones last year.
Last year, I'm not even to comment on the women's divisions. Maybe they weren't as stacked, but I know bodybuilding was insane. Bodybuilding, the supers and the heavies.
When is it not?
Super insane. Oh, I mean, I'm like a huge call out. I can't remember how many people were in the first call out of the supers last year, but it was very impressive.
I believe it.
It was like, yeah. I think it was like 9 or 10 people were in the first call out. That's a lot of big boys on in one line.
Yeah.
So let's share a picture of you from Universe, your pro card winning physique. Here we go. Alrighty. There she is. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
Normally we both comment, but why don't I go first since it's your week?
And I can tell you my feedback from the judges.
What'd you say?
And then I can tell you my feedback, my official feedback on my.
I like that. So first thing that stands out, you have beautiful shape, best conditioning you've brought yet. I think what really stands out to me are the lines in your quads, because they're not muddied at all. And I think, I want to say that you brought really great conditioning in your legs last year, but the unfortunate thing about Universe last year is that back the lighting was terrible, and then that backdrop was red, and so you kind of look smoothed out. But I really do think that your conditioning was probably really close to this. I'd like to hear your opinion on that, but I think that your leg conditioning this year was just really fantastic. I think you have really beautiful shoulders. We're only looking at the front shot right now, but I'm going to bring up a back shot as well. Here we go. We're on NPC News Online. And here's Anna from the back. I really like your back shot. I think the thing that works to your advantage in figure is that you have a really beautiful flow. I think that's your strong suit. And also your calves look great here.
Born that way, I guess.
Yeah. What'd you say?
I said born that way. I guess people are always commenting about the calves.
Yeah, I think overall, if someone were to look at you, for anyone who's maybe new to bodybuilding or doesn't understand what the judges are looking for in figure, I think flow. So for bodybuilding in general, obviously you need to have muscle, and for figure you want to have a nice V taper with the lats from both the front and the back. You want nice rounded shoulders, nice thick back development. You don't want striations, but you do want separation. So you can see the separation right here between the glutes and the hamstrings. You can see her calf muscles nicely from the front, which I already got out of. You could see those quads really nicely. Nothing is striated, but everything is really clean cut and conditioned. And then you want shape as well. So you have to have that muscle, the density, the thickness, shape, and then flow, and have it be aesthetically pleasing. And I think that's really where Anna is a figure girl at heart, because she has the flow. She has a very aesthetically pleasing shape and look. So that is my feedback from you. Now, why don't you tell us what you think and what the judges thought?
Yeah. Well, first of all, when I look at this, the biggest thing that I see is that you can see gap all the way from my ankles all the way up to my butt. There's a big, we call it thigh gap, whatever. A lot of figure girls don't have that. I have it from the front and the back, and that's something that I've noticed and need to work on. We're gonna want that thigh gap to be closed, bigger adductors. I agree with you. I think the conditioning I brought to last year's Universe was just a little smidge short of this conditioning. I mean, I was more conditioned this show. Last year, they told me to bring better condition and to bring down my legs. This year, I opened my feedback today, and they said that I came in a little too lean, and that I should work on overall development, but focus on my legs. Which I think is hilarious, because it's literally the opposite of my feedback last year. And a lot of competitors will talk about that. There's like this ping pong effect of like, you'll get feedback from one show, you'll make those changes that they asked you to make, and then they'll tell you, okay, you went too far. Like, now go backwards and make some other changes. So I've never been told that I came in too lean. So I'm kind of actually like secretly a little proud of that.
Proud of that. I would be.
I'm a little proud of that, because I was a person competing for probably the first 3 years of my competition life. I really never got stage lean, and I worked on it. I had binge eating disorder, and so that was really hard for me on prep. And I finally come out of the other side of that and achieved what I think is a true lean, stage lean physique, and I'm pretty damn proud of that. Proud of my legs. I agree with you. The big difference between the photos last year and the photos this year, I think, came down to lighting. Crazy. So yeah, I'm obviously very proud of my win, proud of my physique. I can see the flaws though, and I see where I need all that overall development. So I'm excited to get down to working on that.
Yeah, I think that sometimes there's this discrepancy between the feedback and the actual look, and I think a lot of that comes down to wording, because when I like think about your looks over the years, because I've obviously looked at all of them, because I'm a dork, it's kind of creepy. So the big thing that I notice is, I don't think it's necessarily that you were too lean this show, but I think that to achieve the leanness that is desired, which I think you're spot on here, and I think that they don't word things properly because they're responding to hundreds of emails a day.
Right.
I think that it's not that you're too lean. I think it's in order to get the leanness that was necessary, you might have had to lose a little bit of the size that contributes to your shape.
It's possible. Yeah.
And I actually had, there's a podcast with a coach. He coaches a lot of women, particularly bikini girls. But I think it's a really important comment here, even though it was about bikini girls, is because they get all kinds of conflicting feedback, right? Like, oh, you need to be fuller, or you need this, you need that.
Right.
And a lot of people take full to mean I need more food, but in reality, you need to be fuller could mean that you are the appropriate amount of leanness or fullness, but you just need more muscle. So not about eating more food for them, but it might be about just building more muscle in the shoulders or whatever. So it's not that their shoulders are flat, it's just that they might not be big enough. And so I think that the words that are given in feedback aren't necessarily corresponding with what the intentions are, I guess, if that makes sense. And I think about how much feedback Sandy and the other judges must have to give, because they have shows constantly.
Yeah. And it's funny, some of it goes back to what we're talking about, where pictures don't tell the full story. I mean, you can't see it in this photo that we're looking at right now. You can't see it, but my quads were feathered. And you could see that as I moved. And, you know, technically you're not supposed to have that for figure, but I've seen many pro figure with feathered quads that are winning. So it's interesting to me, and this is why I find wellness so fascinating, I think. But for me, the last place I lose fat is my abdomen and my glutes. And to get to the place where I need the flat abs and the tie-in on the back, the front of my legs, my quads, comes in like hard. So I know I could never do wellness, because wellness, you have to have abs and soft legs. I could never do that. Genetically, that's just not how it works for me. I don't get abs until my legs are rock hard. So
abs are probably the first thing I get.
That's awesome. See, a lot of women are like that. Yeah. I'm not like that.
They're gone. I heard on another podcast that they're using oils in wellness. I don't know, some of the South American wellness
oils, like the injectable oils.
Yeah, like.
Come on.
Yeah, no, I mean, are you saying come on to me like that's not true, or come on like don't?
No, like that's horrible.
I mean, I agree, but there was also a point made on that podcast that you know, people use all sorts of things to alter their body.
This is true.
That's really the difference. I mean, I don't agree with it, but from a health standpoint, obviously, because you could, you know, that oil has to go somewhere.
Yep.
It's in the bloodstream. So not my jam, but teach their own, I guess. But yeah, so I've heard that about wellness. I obviously don't think it's every single wellness competitor, just like every single bodybuilding competitor isn't using oils as well, but you know, it does exist. So, all right. Well, that's awesome. You know, I'm glad that the show was really well ran, because I think that in the heart of COVID last year, when Universe and what was it? North Americans in Pittsburgh and Junior USA's in Charleston were all taking place. I know that my experience at Junior USA's last year wasn't my favorite. It was super rushed. We were in multiple buildings where it was downpouring rain. We had to like run in between buildings in the like ridiculous humidity of August in Charleston, South Carolina. We did not have any pump up time. We were rushed on stage with no warning. I mean, it was really terrible. I was drenched in sweat and looked awful.
That was kind of like North Americans for me last year in the tent. I was so sweaty. It was horrible.
I mean, props for getting a show out there, but had I known, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Because I looked freaking awful. It's my most embarrassed. I look worse than I did when I started bodybuilding.
Did not look awful. You did not.
Oh, you're so kind. I looked awful. But I think that it is good inspiration for picking a show that I know is going to be top notch in a hotel with air conditioning with good lighting. But all right, so now let's get into our pro shows. Now that we've talked about Universe a little bit and your rise in the ranks to, you know, pro, we're gonna start with just talking about the Puerto Rico Pro. We're only going to talk about the winner, and we're actually going to move right to talking about the Puerto Rico figure winner and the Europa Orlando figure winner, because surprise, surprise, they are the same person. So let me just go right here. We're going to do Jessica Reyes Padilla. She won the Puerto Rico Pro and then went right on to win the Europa Orlando. So on the left here, we have her at Puerto Rico. And on the right here, we have her at Orlando. You can see those, right, Anna?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I have to say, straight up, I liked Jessica Reyes Padilla because you don't like dislike anyone that looks amazing, right? But I didn't think that she had the most fantastic shape in previous years, right?
I
So
didn't either, but this is
exactly. I would have called her like a pencil figure.
Yeah, she was pretty straight up and down.
Yeah, in like 2018. But look at her now. A couple years, some growth. This is what bodybuilding is all about. I love it.
And she has a fabulous coach, Andrew Vu, who is Dennis's coach, and so we root for her when she's on stage because she's Vu's client, and they call him the ninja. They do that for a reason.
So I have no coaching affiliation with her, but she's made me into a fan. Look at that quad sweep. So there's obviously some time in between the Puerto Rico and the Orlando here on the right. She came in sharper. There's a little bit of a different look here. I think it's partially because the tan is a little different and also because the lighting is different. A bit more oil used on the right, I think. So it's in a good way, in my opinion. She looks
overall, I like the right better. The whole look. I think the suit is better too.
I agree with that too. Suit is a better color. Definitely.
Yeah.
The suit on the left is gorgeous as well, but it's just, you have to pick the right color for your body.
Right. It doesn't pop as much as that blue does. Yeah.
She's really built that shape out because I think her lats really are a huge improvement from what they've been in the past. If you look at
now, I would say a strength. They're even a strength for her.
I agree.
She took her weakness and turned it into a strength.
I think she's going to be one of the top competitors at the Olympia this year. She's always been on the high end, but she's never been top. But I think, I could see top 2, top 3.
Yeah, if she keeps going like this, there's a long ways to the Olympia. She could bring a package that's competitive. I agree.
All right, so now we're gonna go right into her back photos, because we can't just look at the front. I think her back has also come up quite a bit. I'm gonna share both of those at the same time, just like with the other one. So here we have her from the back. I want to make them about the same size because otherwise we don't have a good comparison. She's a little off kilter here on the right one, but I think it's just because I chose a transition back photo. I don't think it's because she's actually imbalanced. Overall, look at that nice thickness. She has a great posterior chain. I love the way her glutes and her hamstrings connect like that.
Yep.
I would have to say I like her at Puerto Rico better here. But again, it's probably just because I chose a weird transition photo. Let's see if I can get a better one. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Yeah, okay, there we go.
I like how you can see her quads from the back. There's a very sharp line all the way down from her glute all the way down to her knee, and then from there out protrudes her quad sweep that you can see from the back, and her toes are pointed out a little in the pose, which helps accentuate that. But I think that's a really nice look because she does have such a thick upper body. She has to have some thickness from the lower body in that back shot, and it's right on the money.
I agree. And I also like, in previous podcasts, we've talked about how bringing out the rear delt can sometimes lose the lat. And what I like about her is she's grown her lats out so much that she can accentuate that rear delt without losing her V-taper. So she's got bubbly rear delt, but she also has that nice V-taper, which I think a lot of competitors lose. So overall, I'm super stoked. She won the Puerto Rico Pro, and then she went and won the Orlando Europa. So now we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the Orlando Europa completely now, and we're going to talk about our other winners, our second place. So our second place at the Orlando Europa. Here we go. Can you see that?
I can.
Fantastic. Okay. So this is Rhea Gayle. She's our second place winner here. I think that she has a phenomenal shape.
Killer shape, tiny waist and a short waist, so the dramatic V of her lats is very accentuated.
I think it's a really good comment that her torso is short, because you're right. That does provide a very dramatic shape.
Compared to Jessica, whose torso is very long.
Yeah, that's true. Which camp are you in? Do you have a long torso or a short torso?
Like I'd like a regular one, I guess. Like,
I'm definitely a long torso myself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I stood next to my friend a while ago. This is like a decade ago when we were in high school, or actually even longer. But and her leg length, her legs, she's like 5 inches shorter than me. Her legs come up to my belly button.
Wow.
I have this
Okay.
really
long torso.
long torso and short legs.
We in high school in biology class, we did there was this one experiment that we did where we measured everything. You measure wingspan, and then you measure your height when you're kneeling, and you measure your height standing, and there's supposed to be golden ratios or whatever that Leonardo da Vinci came up with. And I was just regular for everything. Everything was just normal. I don't have long, short, nothing. Not exciting.
Well, one thing about Rhea that I like is obviously her shape. I love those delts. She has very hard looking delts. They are cappy and hard. And I dig that look. I also like the way they look from the front delt and chest work that she does must be paying off, because I really like that. And I don't think you get that if you're not doing a lot of pressing. I do dig her adductor area, where you don't see a big gap in between her adductors. You don't see a gap at all, and they're stuck right together. But one thing for me personally, that I would like to see change is I would like her knees to maybe be closer together. I don't really like the squatty posing.
Okay, I can see that.
I don't know how else to describe it. I don't think she actually is squatting, but this is it's just like a preference thing that I have.
She might have a natural bow.
Yeah, she might. If you look at her toes are directly forward.
Directly together, yeah, and forward.
So, I know it might not be something.
Can I compliment her on something kind of weird? I don't know if this will translate for our listeners rather than our viewers. I'm gonna try. I really like how in her front pose right here, you can see her glutes. Does that make
sense? I love that too. I love that too.
Love that look. And I don't think I'll ever have that look. So I'm just a little bit of a jelly monster with it. But when she is straight on here, you can see her medial glutes from that front pose. And I think that just makes her overall shape so pleasing. I don't know. I'm a fan of that.
With you. And I think that if you look right here, and I'm pointing to it with I don't know if you can see my arrow, but you have this little dip right here. And I think in normal people, I shouldn't say normal people, I think in image conscious non-bodybuilding women on the internet, that's called a hip dip.
Yeah. Hip dips.
People don't like it.
Right?
I love it. I'm like, hell yeah, I want a hip dip. But non-bodybuilding women who are overly obsessed with thinness, that kind of fitness.
Yeah.
That's a thin style of fitness where they're running and doing yoga. They hate that hip dip, and they want a thigh gap. It can't be the more opposite of us.
It's so funny.
Okay, so now we're gonna look at her back shot, and I think, to me, her back shot is more my favorite from her. I really like it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. She has beautiful full glutes from the back. This is a look that I think not everyone can pull off, because everyone has a different level of conditioning that looks appropriate on their physique for their muscle. Right. And I think for some competitors, this glute look might be a little too soft for them. I shouldn't say soft, but maybe you want them to have more lines, or even some figure competitors might get striations in their glutes, which technically you're not supposed to have, but for some people it looks appropriate on their physique. But for her, this really full look with those super conditioned hamstrings is a really appealing look. I don't know if that makes sense, but
oh yeah, I agree. It looks soft and hard at the same time, which is kind of what you're going for in figure, if that makes sense. You want that smoothness, which we don't like that word in bodybuilding, but kind of, and at the same time, you want everything to be tight and solid appearing. So, yeah, I think she nailed the conditioning. I guess I would have liked to see more conditioned quads. That's my only critique
I
of
agree.
her physique.
Yeah, I agree. That would be the number one thing. I think she just needs, it's not even conditioning. I think it's not a matter of fat loss. It's just part of it's genetic, right? How deep are the lines in your quads? That's kind of
Right.
a partially a genetic thing, because you'll see super lean as can be bodybuilding men, and they won't really have any lines in their quads. And then,
Right.
I think that same thing can happen with
I
women.
wonder if that's just overall development or just
I think
genetic.
it's a combination, because when you see some competitors, like let's stick with women here, when you see some competitors in their first shows, even 3 years in, they might not have lines, but
Mhm.
then like Jessica Reyes Padilla is a good example. She's always had some lines, in the past, but they are deep this year. And so I think it's a combination of development and conditioning, and also having the genetic capability. So that's my 2 cents. So
Yeah.
now we're gonna move on to third place, who I know you love.
Personal fave. Yeah. Actually, she started following me and wished me luck in my show a couple
I
weeks ago. I was like, oh my God. I like
I
totally fangirled and geeked out over it.
so our third place winner at the Orlando Europa was Ivana, and she looks phenomenal. This is her first show of the season. She was really excited and posting a lot about it. She has
Yep.
a really good look. She has narrow clavicles, but somehow manages to make herself look really wide with her shoulders. It doesn't always work that way,
She,
but
she does. She has such a nice round delt. I think that's where it comes back. Actually, when I hired my coach, I sent him a picture of Ivana and I was like, this is my figure goal look, whatever. And he was like, yeah, well, your clavicles are wider than hers. And I was like,
I would
whatever.
agree with that. I would agree with that. The thing about
um,
Anna is she just has a lot of muscle. She's been at it for a
yeah,
while.
her abs, those are my dream abs right there. When
Those
we talk about abs and how they're supposed to look, not super bubbly, but you can see every single line, even the very lower abs. I mean, I can count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on each side.
Mhm.
And in the front shot, that's hard to do.
It looks beautiful. So my main comment on this pose in general is just leg conditioning.
Yeah, it's weird because I've been watching her on Instagram and it seems like she was bringing her leanest physique ever. And then her legs were not as conditioned as I've seen them.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. Maybe it was lighting, maybe there was a missed peak. I've seen her legs look better than this, although from the waist up, I don't think I've seen better on
Yeah, I
her.
was thinking the waist up, she looks fantastic. And the reason I said, well, when you were saying that, is just because Instagram is kind of like, there's another person at the show that we're not going to talk about because she didn't place high enough, but whose Instagram content was like blowing it out of the water.
Yeah,
Man, you'd think no one was working harder. You'd think that no one had ever brought better conditioning. And then
yeah,
on the stage, she didn't look that great.
right.
Um,
It's so
and
funny how that can happen.
yeah, I don't think Ivana is like that though, by the way. This is somebody else I'm talking about. But I think she is in good condition. I don't know if missing a peak would cause the legs. I feel like the legs just need more time dieting, you know.
It's strange because her adductors are pretty well defined and then her quads are just washed out. I don't usually get adductors until my quads are there. So it's just like it goes back again to like what order everything comes off.
Yeah, and everybody has such a different order. So I would say that's the primary thing for her.
Let's see her back shot. I'm
Absolutely. Her back
curious now.
shot, I think that her actual back itself is phenomenal. It's very thick. It has a great look. But then you get to
Yeah,
the lower half and there's no definition. Even the glutes don't look that great in my opinion.
but she got third place. I mean, that's not a
Oh,
snub by
no, that's
any.
something that not shabby at all. I think she just needs to do more weeks of prep and then do another show. And I think she'll be phenomenal.
It makes me wonder too. Well, she is, I think, competing this weekend.
Good.
What's this weekend?
Which show?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no, I don't know. I feel disappointed for her because I just sense that she felt like she was bringing something better than this, but she'll put her head down. She'll get it done. I know she will.
I mean, I personally think that you know when you do one show, I don't want to say it's warm up. I don't like using that expression because it could be phenomenal. Like it could be best look ever for a show of the season. But I also like to always acknowledge that doing multiple shows is a good thing. And
yeah,
it sort of, especially when you've been away from it, because like she didn't do the Olympia, she didn't qualify for the Olympia last year, so she's been off the stage for a while. And sometimes it just takes getting under that lighting and getting the feedback from, you know, your own feedback just by looking at your pictures and your videos yourself. Maybe sometimes it takes that in order to get better for the next show. So
yeah.
But overall, I love Ivana. She has a great look. I mean, look at that back. It's thick. This is great. I want a back like that.
And I mean, her glutes look good in that shot too. So yeah, she just has like a little bit more to go.
They do. I mean, I think from the waist down, she's got some fat to lose. So now we're going to move on to the Omaha Pro that happened this past weekend. There's no figure, but there was women's physique and women's bodybuilding, which I'm really excited to talk about.
Yes.
Okay, so this is our women's physique winner from the weekend. I might butcher the name. It's Chistelle Zarovska.
I think you got it.
Chistelle Zarovska, who won her pro card at the Arnold Amateur, I believe in Class A a few years back. She got second at the Puerto Rico Pro in women's physique this year, which was really recently. Of course, we just talked about that as well. And she's really moved up the ranks. I think last year she was like maybe second call outs at the New York Pro. And then before that, you know, even farther back in the lineup. So she's really moved up. She also, at the same show where she won her pro card, she also competed in Masters. So I'm not sure how old she is now, but it definitely shows that she's, you know, a Masters level. So it's really great that she's competing in the open category women's physique and doing really well. So she obviously won her ticket to the O, and this is her front relaxed. I think she has really good conditioning. She has nice shape. The front relaxed in women's physique is not as, it doesn't hold the same amount of gravity that it does in figure, because in figure you only have the 4 poses, where in women's physique you have the whole gamut. You have the 4 quarter turns, the front double bi, the back double bi, the side tri and the side chest, and then the ab and thigh. So you have more poses. So it's not quite as, I don't want to say it's not as important, but you know, it's not 1/4 of your score.
Right.
That's what I mean by that. So overall, I think she looks really great. Love the abs. I think her legs look fantastic. She has nice shape. She's not straight up and down, which I really like.
Yeah, I agree. I look at this and the first thing that comes to mind is I really can't find anything to pick out right off the bat and be like, this needs work or this needs, you know, when I look at her, I'm not like blown away or super excited, but I also can't find anything wrong.
I agree.
If that makes sense. Like there's nothing specifically.
So here's her front double bi. And again, I would say it's a similar thing as the front relaxed. There's not really a ton that you would take away from it. I think the one thing I noticed is her abs have disappeared from, because you saw them in the front relax and you don't see them here. I also would say that she needs to work on her biceps.
Yep, I could see that.
Yeah, because they're, you know, you need a little bit more pop. It's funny, before I started thinking about bodybuilding, you know, like women's physique, women's bodybuilding, I never really thought about, oh, you got to work on your biceps. To me, they were just kind of like a floofy gym bro, activity or gym muscle.
Yeah.
But
girls, man,
they matter. They really matter in these poses. So we're gonna move on. We just looked at her front double bi. Now we're gonna look at her back double bi, and I think that her back double bi is pretty good. It's better than the front double.
That's nice.
It is very nice. I love the
back is super conditioned.
Yeah, super conditioned. I love the way her delts look from the back too.
Now her glutes are not as sharp as I've seen on some women's physique winners.
I will say though that at the top you can see the striations.
The striations at the top. But looking at this, and then I know we're going to look at the bodybuilders in a second. Maybe that's what maybe, you know, she still has very sharp glutes. They're just not like razors, like I've seen some. So maybe they're trying to keep that distinction in there.
I think they might be, you know, for me, I was talking to Nate about the difference between women's physique and women's bodybuilding. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to tell, but to me, there is a distinct look difference to the muscle itself. So it's like partially the striations, right? Because women's physique, let's go back to figure. Figure, they say no striations. Women's physique, they want some striations. And then women's bodybuilding is like shredded. So one of the main differences between women's physique and women's bodybuilding to me is particularly the word grainy. Women's physique competitors aren't supposed to be grainy.
Right. Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, if you're not used to bodybuilding in general, you wouldn't really know the distinction between that. But there's a distinctly grainy look, and when we get to the women's bodybuilding winner, I think that word grainy really applies, and you definitely see a huge difference. So maybe I'll bring up the two, and we'll compare side by side just to see the difference between women's physique and women's bodybuilding.
Yep.
All right, so next we're going to move on to her side try. This is probably my favorite of all of her poses. I think it's really beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the side try in women's physique and women's bodybuilding. I don't know what it is. It just has that flow that I love. And I'm a sucker for that big tricep and delt and seeing all of that with the hard quad.
It's honestly one of my favorite poses on men too. Just in general.
True, I agree.
The flow of a person's physique in this pose is super nice and artistic looking. And that's what I think why I like it so much.
I agree. Artistic. I like that description in particular. So now I'm actually going to put her down on the taskbar so I can bring up our women's bodybuilding winner, who I'm only moderately obsessed with. Everybody knows who she is. No one can ever say anything negative about her because there's nothing negative. Michaela Aycock. I love Michaela Aycock. I love her physique. I love her personality. I love everything about Michaela Aycock.
She is something else. Superhuman, maybe.
And you know what really struck me about her at this show? I'm going to get kind of girly when I say this, but what really struck me about her here, like, ignore the muscle, ignore everything else, but she was just radiant.
She was.
I mean, absolutely.
Great makeup look for her.
Yeah. What'd you say?
She did it well with the makeup. It's bright, happy looking.
Yeah. Her grin is just happy. And I mean, if you followed her on Instagram throughout the weekend, you'd know that she spent a lot of time with her mom. Her mom went to the show with her, and
yes,
they were just having a blast. And I think that really shows. So very happy for her. All right, so now that we talked about that, her physique is nuts. I think her biggest change from her last looks is that her upper body and her lower body are a lot more balanced now. Her quad sweep has definitely improved quite a bit. And it really shows because she has balance in a way that she didn't have before.
It's interesting. Her quads start lower than some people. Some people's quads come out from their hips. Hers come out from about midway down her legs. So I think just genetically she had to fight with that. She lives like 45 minutes from me, and she comes to MI40 sometimes for body work with the guy that I see.
You bragger. I wish I lived that close to Michaela Aycock.
I haven't met her yet. I can't wait to meet her because I hear she's just humble and very, very kind. But he was telling me she barely has done any upper body stuff this year because they told her about that imbalance, and she has held on to so much upper body size despite not really doing much. Like her lats are just like, she puts her arms up and her armpits are just like,
I know.
I just can't. I don't know how she does it. She's amazing. And she was a little toothpick like 6 years ago.
I will say, this is how nice she is. I randomly started messaging her like a while ago. I don't remember how long ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And she like just responds back like a nice normal person. And even though I'm like a weird, creepy bodybuilder fan, messaging her and responding to her stories. So we occasionally talk a little bit, and she's always so nice and willing to give advice or just, respond. And she said, when I've asked her about her training, and she was doing 3 lower body days a week. And we were talking about, the body's response and why her legs have improved so much. And part of it is because it's not only that when, like, let's say you're doing 3 days a week of lower body and then 2 days a week of upper body, right? You would think that the lower body is getting rest. I think a lot of people would think that because, those upper body days, technically the lower body is resting. but it's not the same as having complete rest
Right.
and the legs being able to completely recover. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that that was a huge component in her making those improvements, because she was able to completely recover, and then train legs again, and then completely recover and then train legs again. So this is probably one of my favorite shots. I don't know. It's hard to pick. It's hard to pick. I love that shot. That's a great side chest.
It is.
Great side chest. She's more conditioned than, I mean, anyone we've ever shared on the podcast. And especially now when we get to her back shots. And I think this is one that we can compare to the women's physique competitor, because if you look at this back shot, it's very different looking than the women's physique, and not just different because of the posing, it's different because of the actual look to the muscle.
Yeah.
I mean, look at those glutes.
Hard as nails.
Yeah.
Striated. There is not an ounce of fat on this woman's body, not 1 ounce of fat anywhere.
And they pose the glutes differently too.
Yeah.
And they pose it more like a men's bodybuilder, because it's bodybuilding, it's women's bodybuilding. So
it's just unbelievable.
So I'm gonna bring that one up. We're almost done. I'm gonna bring up another one, and we'll compare afterward to the women's physique competitor. I mean, that's nuts. Look at that. Right now we're looking at a back relaxed. I didn't show a back relaxed from the women's physique competitor, but just look at, you can see, even if you ignore the lower body and the striations and the hardness of the lower body, you can see that hardness in the upper body as well.
I wish she had moved her hair. I want to see her traps. I want to see all the way up.
You heard it first, Michaela. Move your hair. Just kidding. I'm going to show one more, the ab and thigh. Not typically a favorite shot of mine, if I'm being honest, but I really like this. I think I particularly like it because you can see the teardrops so nicely, which is one of the benefits of the ab and thigh. And I really like it on her, even though I don't typically enjoy the ab and thigh that much. Even in men's bodybuilding, I'm not a huge fan of the ab and thigh, except when Chris Bumstead hits it with the vacuum. That looks nice. But he can hit anything, so. All right. So now we're going to compare the look of the women's physique with the look that Michaela Aycock has. So I'm going to show two. I'll show this one and this one. Oops. So we're going to compare the, which ones can you see right now? Just out of curiosity.
Now I see two.
Okay, great. So you're seeing Michaela's back and the women's physique back, correct?
Yeah, they're not the same shot. The women's physique is doing like this with her hands.
Yeah, she's doing like a transition shot. Yeah. Let me see if I can get more.
I mean, you can still see the difference.
Is that better?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and I like that this is the same show, same judges, and they're clearly telling you what they're looking for between each division.
Yeah, right. And everything is the same. The judges, the backdrop, the lighting, like there's, I mean, even the way I'm showing them, you can see everything is lining up perfectly. So it gives you a great comparison of the look. So look at the glutes for one thing. Obviously, huge difference in the glutes. You've got way more striations with what Michaela in the women's bodybuilding is doing. Obviously, for women's physique, we have the open hand, and women's bodybuilding, we have the closed fist. And the development of the back is different. But overall, like, even if we're not talking about being big, you can see a difference in the muscle itself. Michaela has, it's harder, it's grainier.
It's harder, it's grainier. Mm-hmm. It's funny, the women's physique competitor almost looks sharper, but when you know a lot about muscle development and bodybuilding, Michaela, I think, is leaner and more conditioned, obviously, but her muscles are so big that they're almost like, they have this like bubbly.
There you go. Yeah, bubbly.
That the women's physique competitor doesn't. So she kind of looks like a sharper look, her overall back, wouldn't you say? Sharper.
I think because the muscles are like
just so developed.
Yeah, so with the women's physique competitor, I think that since the muscles aren't as big and they're not as developed, they're more clearly discernible from each other.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I think the word sharper generally, I think Michaela's conditioning is sharper, but I know what you mean about like telling each of the muscle fibers
Yeah.
apart. Yeah, I know what you
I'm
mean.
trying to figure out how to describe it, but maybe that's the best thing to do.
The words. Overall though, I think this was a really great show. Some of the pro shows don't have all of the divisions. Okay, I should rephrase that. Most of the pro shows don't have all of the divisions, right? Like there are tons of bikini only shows, tons of shows where maybe there's bikini and figure. I think that's going to happen a lot now with wellness. I think wellness and bikini will be probably, they'll have those two together, or maybe wellness and figure. Hard to say which one, but I think now that wellness is on the scene, there's probably going to be a lot of wellness shows.
Well, I'll tell you what, at the champion photo shoot with Mannion or he said there were twice as many wellness competitors as figure competitors at Universe.
I have some opinions on that.
They are the judges of the league. They want that to be like a desirable division, and it's headed that way. And I think that comes down to sex appeal.
I will give you that. I completely agree with you on that. It's sex appeal sells, obviously. Sex sells. But also, since wellness is in, because of the sex appeal, right? It was destined to be a highly sought after category, right? So it was automatically like that. It has Instagram appeal, which is a huge component to fitness and our sport. But even besides those things, since it's new, we're going to have tons of people trying it out who
That's true.
Probably shouldn't be doing it. But promoters and judges and people in general, coaches, are not going to discourage those people because of money.
Right.
Because they want people to try it. They want people to do multiple divisions so they get more of those entry fees. And they want people to think that they have a shot even if they have no lower body.
That's true.
I hate to put it like that, but a lot of people doing these local wellness shows, they're dipping their toes in the water. They want to see if they can do it, so they're trying it. And I don't discourage that. I think that's totally fine. Do what you want to do. Spend your money how you want to spend it. But a lot of people shouldn't be doing it. A lot of people shouldn't be doing wellness,
Yeah, I mean, back to what we were saying before about how you have to be a very specific kind of genetic athlete to do wellness and do well at wellness. I mean, I think caters to how some women are. Some women are lower body heavy, and that's the last fat that will ever come off of them. And some women who maybe tried bikini, tried figure, but could never get their lower body lean enough and have a really big imbalanced lower body, those are the women that are going to do really, really well in wellness. And I hope that women who haven't found success in other divisions because of those things do try wellness and do well in wellness. I really hope so. But I think for many people who are at the local level, like you said, who maybe just haven't won a bikini show because they've never gotten truly stage lean and think, well, okay, maybe I'll do wellness. That's not.
Those wellness pros are lean. They are lean and hard. They are not people that didn't lose the body fat.
Yes.
They're lean and hard. And they've been training lower body a lot for most likely many years. I actually have one person in mind when I'm thinking right now who never got into shape for figure and has some sort of inflated sense of like importance. And I think that sometimes switching from one division to the new division, since that new division was so small last year, it kind of gave an opportunity to become like a guru in the division.
Okay.
And in reality, I mean, it's just someone who switched because they never got into shape. Sounds harsh, but I think
but that's the same thing I was saying.
Yeah, if you're switching just because you're not getting in shape.
It isn't about, I can't get in shape for the stage, so I'm going to do a division that, well, actually, it's funny. So a lot of brand new people who've never competed before think wellness is exactly like it sounds. Wellness, like the type of conditioning that isn't unhealthy. You look healthy and well on stage. That's not.
It's an interesting
little bit of a
name. Like, why did they name it wellness?
Because I guess that's what they're getting at the end of the day. Like, it's not like an unhealthy, but the Olympians are shredded, like you said. So I don't know.
Is that,
I don't know. Wellness.
Maybe they just didn't have any more creative ideas for the category.
Other countries, in the other IFBB countries, wellness was a category before they brought it to US, right?
It was, but I don't know what it was called. Was it called wellness? I don't know.
I don't know anything about all that stuff. They have like fit body and this and that, and I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah, there are different like fit model category, like the fit model or fitness model. There's
Right.
a category in some other countries, organizations that aren't NPC. I'm trying to think of. There's one in the UK. They have their own. That's pretty, like, I don't want to say big, but pretty big in the UK. And I think a lot of countries have their own.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something to think about. I'm not even sure how we got off on that tangent, but somehow we got there.
Exactly.
I do want to acknowledge another thing too that we talked about with our review of one of the junior shows. We had one competitor in figure that we both agreed was had very narrow clavicle width, and we said that because of how developed her lower body was and the narrow clavicle, she'd probably be a good fit for wellness.
I remember her. Yep.
And I think that actually is going to be a huge thing for wellness competitors. It's not going to be about just being thick on the bottom. I think it's also about having narrow clavicles, because you need to have developed delts and you need to have hard delts. Like they need to be the same conditioning as bikini, right? And some bikini girls have pretty hard delts, depending on who we're looking at. So it needs to be that same conditioning, but it can't match your bottom in size. So like, let's say you have to build those delts up to have the good round delts, but you also need to have your upper body significantly smaller than your lower body. Well, how do we get there?
No back.
Narrow clavicles and the back. Yeah, exactly. Like no width to the lats and narrow clavicles. So I think that's going to be big for wellness, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, yeah, I think we got here because I was talking about twice as many wellness competitors.
Oh, that is how we got there. Yeah, so I think that's part of it. I think that it's all the people trying the category who have done other categories, not necessarily just trying it because they didn't get in shape. Maybe they got into great shape and they just want to give it a go. So I don't want it to paint everybody with the same brush, but I think at the local level, that's more of what it is. And I think at the national level, more people are dipping their toes into wellness just because it's kind of a cool new division, has a lot of hype right now, might be kind of fun to do. And yes, of course, the sex appeal, but I don't necessarily think that they all should be doing wellness.
Right.
Because where did all these wellness competitors come from? They're supposed to be imbalanced. That's part of it. You have to be a bigger on the bottom. It says it in the rules. So if you are bigger on the bottom, did you just get that way overnight from last year? Do you know what I mean? Or are you not really quite there yet and you're just competing? That's kind of my thought process.
Either they were imbalanced before and now they have the perfect division for them.
That's true.
Or they've had 1 year to grow their bottom halves. So
that's impressive growth in 1 year for ladies. It's not easy to grow your bottom half.
Yep. And then there's some people like Dr. Sunny Andrews who had that body and we're just waiting for the perfect division to come on.
Well, she competed in the WBFF.
Yes, she did. So that's actually that's a little wellness kind of is what they're looking for in that division. So it almost translates pretty well.
I don't remember what division was she, because they have different Pro Diva or something.
Pro Diva, I think, right?
Yeah, they have different categories. So that's a good point. People are switching from other organizations to do well.
Yeah.
And those people are probably the best suited because they already have years of that dense lower body muscle. They're not just, competing or switching over from figure or bikini.
And then our top people, like the women going to the Olympia in wellness, they have already competed in wellness in other countries. Yeah, they're already
South America.
They're already there. They've been training for this category for however long. So yeah, it's probably going to take the American women a little while to catch up, I would say.
I agree. Well, on that note, we've had a really good episode today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We are going to recap a few shows coming up, and we also are probably going to have a couple interviews coming up in our next episode. You can look out for our episodes every other week. We're aiming to do an episode every other week. We may occasionally surprise you with extra ones in between, but you can look out for us every other week on the Think Big Bodybuilding podcast app or on YouTube. And thank you for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.